Greetings, Taku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all my full season review of The Legend of Korra Season 2 right here on Otaku Assemble! Weekly, and finally, as promised, here to bring you all my thoughts, views, and opinions on the second season of The Legend of Korra. Now, let's go ahead and let's kick off this review with a brief synopsis of Season 2. Now, Season 2 picks up 6 months after the conclusion of Season 1, and there are two major conflicts occurring within Season 2. The first we get introduced to, I believe, as early as the end of the premiere, at the end of the first episode, I believe is when it's hinted to that one of the major conflicts in Season 2 is the civil war that's occurring between the Northern Water Tribe and the Southern Water Tribe, and that's of course being headed by the two brothers, Chief Unalaq from the north and Chief Tonraq from the south, who is also Korra's father. And so within the first 4 episodes, as you all will recall from my episode 1, 2, and then episode 3 and 4 reviews, where we learn both the brothers' backstory and how Tonraq ended up in the Southern Water Tribe, and then of course, so we learn about the brothers' conflict, the political conflict, and how the Civil War has pretty much started. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, keep this in mind. So we have a civil war going on between the water tribes. And of course that affects what's happening in Republic City, and I think it's mentioned to, or it's at least hinted to, how the Earth Kingdom and the Fire Nation are reacting to it. But pretty much the main crux of it all accumulates in Republic City, because that's where the President Raiko is. That's where the council is. That's where the United the heads of the United Forces are. All of these political elements that get brought into play during this struggle that's going on. And the whole time this is happening, since this is the immediate issue, the overarching plot of the season is actually the Harmonic Convergence that is occurring. The Harmonic Convergence is, if memory serves me correctly, how it's explained into the series, this is pretty much what happens when the spiritual portals in the north and in the south, when they open, and pretty much it's sort of this, I don't want to call it necessarily a rite of passage, but it is one of these duties that the Avatar has to do in order to pretty much pacify the spiritual and living in human world, because during the convergence is when spirits will actually invade Earth. And of course there are the dark spirits that are creating natural catastrophes and things like that throughout the 4 kingdoms, and the Avatar is the one who's supposed to step in and pacify all of that to restore balance and restore peace. However, Chief Unalaq has decided to use this opportunistic moment to not only I don't know if you can call it conning, I don't know if you can call it manipulating, I don't know what you can call what Unalaq actually does to Korra, but in essence, he is going to use Korra's power and her influence in the spiritual world to actually, I know, hang on, bear with me. He's going to use her to infiltrate the spirit world so that he can access, I believe it's called the, I think it's the Tree of Life is what it's referred to, in which Vaitu, who is the spirit of destruction, he's going to infiltrate the spirit world so that he can fuse himself with Vaitu in the same way that the original Avatar did with the spirit Rava, and he's going to become the Dark Avatar and take over the world. Yeah, I'm not lying to you. That's actually what happened in the season. That's the grandiose master plan of the Season 2 villain, Chief Unalaq. That's what his plan is. Yeah. Okay. So where Korra and all her friends fall into play with this whole thing, of course, Korra immediately is in the middle of the Civil War, because not only is it her people, the water tribes, feuding against each other, but it's her actual family, because on the one hand she has her uncle, on the other hand she has her father. So she's already caught in the middle of that. And that's where I wish she would have stayed. But then, of course, with the whole harmonic convergence and the spiritual portals and the dark spirits and all that jazz, of course, her being the Avatar, she has to play a role in that as well. Meanwhile, her little band of buddies, I guess you can call them, Mako and Bolin and Asami, they get caught up in what's going on in Republic City, because because when the Civil War does spill over into Republic City, it's this whole thing about how, they're trying to influence the president to whatever side. How the North is being demonized, how the South is supposed to be this great, heroic rebellion taking place, and how Varric, who's our, I don't know if you can really call him a red herring or whatnot, but Varric is our, eccentric industrialist who has thrown himself into the fray of this Civil War, and we find out that he's actually one of the instigators in the whole affair, because he's trying to use that for his own profiteering, war profiteering. And so, of course, we have the whole conflict between him and Asami, because she's reached out to him to try to help out with future industries after it's almost fallen to ruin after her father was arrested at the end of season 1. And so there's that whole, I guess you could call it, corporate political struggle going on. Mako, he's a police officer in Republic City, and he's the one that's looking into all of this, the whole conspiracies and two-timing and double dealing and whatnot. And then Bolin just finds himself strung along because Varric's used him as the face of this whole political campaign to demonize the North, yeah, all of that happened. Alrighty, okay. So pretty much, and then let's talk briefly about Tenzin. Tenzin decides to take this time to go on a family vacation. Yeah, Tenzin's decided, hey, I'm gonna go off on a family vacation with my kin, and we're gonna go and do our own thing, and then we're just gonna worry about this whenever we get back home. So all of this accumulates, and pretty much, in essence, what happens is Unalaq becomes the Dark Avatar. Korra ceases to be the Avatar, and it seems like the North is going to win the Civil War. But some way, somehow, Korra pulls another Deus Ex Machina out of her ass, where she ends up defeating Unalaq and killing him. Which I'll get into more detail about that later in this review. Republic City is restored, and the South finally, secedes from the North, and now they're operating as two different nations now. Alrighty then. Excuse me while I take a drink of water, because there's some shit we need to speak about. Okay. So, first things first, let's talk about the pros of this season. Let's talk about the stuff that's actually good. Let's talk about the stuff that actually works. First and foremost, okay, I want to get this out of the way before I start critiquing this damn thing. Don't get me wrong. Most of the plot elements in this season actually do work. A civil war between the two water tribes, that works, because we've never seen it before. In the first series, in Avatar the Last Airbender, of course we had the 100-year war of the four nations, minus the air nomads who were already wiped out, and for the most part the water tribes were pretty much neutral, because the South was they were going off their shores, fighting in the Earth Kingdom, trying to help the Earth Kingdom. But whenever there was a Fire Nation raid in the South, they couldn't really defend themselves, and they were sort of like this small band of rebels, if you will. And in the North, they were so fortified there, you know, up in their icy fortress, no one could invade the north, so they were completely neutral on the whole thing because they could just sit up there and wait the whole damn thing out. So the main conflict was really between the Fire Nation and the Earth Kingdom in the original series, right? So, and then of course, throughout the course of that series, we see the Southern Water Tribe and we see the Northern Water Tribe get involved in the war, but never did we really see them take a full-fledged footing in the major conflict. And also, we never saw infighting between them. We knew that there was animosity, we knew there were tensions, but we never saw infighting. So I will say that was actually good because we never saw it before, and it was a territory that the writers had yet to go into. So I thought that worked. Another thing that worked, the idea, the concept behind the harmonic convergence, I thought that worked well too. You know, that it was this time where the spirit world and where the human world blended, where the lines between them was blurred, and where the Avatar would have to step in and, you know, pacify that whole thing. I thought that was good too. Also, the way they handled some of the political avenues in Republic City, in, you know, how some of the people in Republic City were responding to and dealing with the Civil War, I thought that was kind of good. For an example of this, I mean, hell, even the thing with Asami and Varric, I thought was pretty well done, you know, and that worked. It made sense that, you know, these two captains of industry would be, you know, they would be thrown into the fray of this because, of course, they have to supply either one of the opposing sides, and then how they would have to conflict against each other and stuff like that, whether it was through, you know, Asami and her selfless actions, you know, her company wanting to, you know, do the right thing, stand by the South and all that type of jazz. And then on the other side of that, you have Varric and his selfish profiteering, you know, war profiteering, all that jazz. All of that I thought worked. Okay? This is where everything starts to fall apart. And it's and once again, it's my same comments that I made about season 1. It is, and I'm sorry, but it's the characters. The characters, the way they are written, the way they are handled, and the shit they do starts to really hurt all of that positive shit I just talked about. And this is what I mean. Alright? First and foremost, I didn't like the idea that a civil war between the water tribes would come at the helm of two brothers. I don't care to see the sibling rivalry in this series anymore. We've had it. We had let's see, we had Zuko and Azula in the original series. We had Amon and Tarlok in season 1 of The Legend of Korra, and now we got Unalaq and Tunaraq. Now we got those two, the feuding brothers. Oh, I'm so fucking tired of seeing this used. As much, and funny enough, as much as I like sibling rivalries, especially between brothers in stories, I think that the creators have kind of run their course with this material. Oh, also in the original series, you had Iroh and Ozai. That was another one. In Avatar: The Last Airbender, another sibling rivalry taking place. So yeah, they've kind of run this plot device into the ground. They've over fucking done it at this point. It was overdone in season 1. Now it's just fucking beating a dead horse. Alright. And once again, I'll talk about Unalaq's character motivation later on. I'll get to him in a minute. So yeah, so first off, that was one thing I didn't care for. Second thing I didn't care for, I've never cared for the main characters of this series. Never. And you'll remember from my season 1 reviews, I always said the supporting characters were more interesting than the main characters. But like Mako, Bolin, Asami, I don't give a shit about them, in all honesty. I really don't. Now granted, I like the fact that they gave Mako and Asami, you know, legitimate things to do, legitimate purposes and story arcs and character arcs in this series. You know, Mako was the police officer, Asami's the head of Future Industries, and they had a role to play in this conflict. I like that. But where shit got on my fucking nerves was when they let all the fucking personal shit get in the way of doing their fucking jobs, and at the end of the day, it didn't amount to anything. You know what I'm saying? Because they had the whole Korra Mako breakup, and then this whole thing like the relationships. The relationships in the Legend of Korra have always been bad. Make no mistake about that. I'm not arguing that season 2 is any worse than season 1 in that regard. No, they've always been fucking bad. But at this point, it's like in season 2 was when we were dealing with some real deal, you know, bigger than ourselves shit. And they kept going to that feudal fucking shallow place. And no, you can't tell me that it's the fact, oh, well, they're teenagers, Larry, and no. Because the Aang gang in the fucking original series, they were pre-teens, and they didn't deal with this shit. And when they did deal with it, it was on their own time. It wasn't, oh, we have to go fucking save the world. But wait a minute, me and you never talked about the kiss the other night. It was none of that shit. No. And then, of course, like, Bolin has always been a useless character. Always been a useless character. And seeing as how in season 2 they introduced Varric as a new comedy relief, yeah, Varric completely fucking overshadowed Bolin. Completely. At that point, I was like, yo, I said it in one of my, I think it was like my the episode 1 or episode 2 of season 2 review, where I was like, now that they introduced Varric, and he was actually hilarious, I'm done with Bolin. There's no use for him anymore. Okay. I do want to talk about Tenzin and his family, because here's the thing. What they did with Tenzin and his family, and especially his siblings with Bumi and with Kaya, that was good. But it was executed poorly, in my opinion. This is what I mean. Like, the episodes that they decided to expand on that, and the fact that it had to happen at a cost of removing Tenzin and his family from the main conflict, I thought was a poor decision on the writer's part. And I wouldn't have done that. I would have had them been more involved and had all the past animosity and insecurities and all, you know, the personal shit that Tenzin and his siblings were dealing with, have that play a role in what they would be doing in the major conflict, so that when it came to a head, remember what I just said about Mako and Asami and Bolin, right? How they let their personal stuff interfere with what they were doing? They should have done that with Tenzin and his family, to where they would come at odds, or where something would happen to where they would let their personal stuff interfere with their duties in the main conflict, so that when they disapprove of it, like when Tenzin says, hey, that's some childish bullshit, now's not the time for that. Or when Bumi says, hey, no, we shouldn't be dealing with that right now, then that conflict can come to a head. Then that resolution can take place, because now you force these characters to deal with these issues because they know that they shouldn't be dealing with it then. Is it making sense what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Once again, I will reiterate, if Tenzin and his siblings played a more central role in the conflict throughout, I'm not talking about when they got involved at the end, I'm talking about from Jump Street, they shouldn't have cast them aside, they shouldn't have put them on that little vacation, they should have kept them around, they should have got them involved, and when their personal stuff interfered with their role in the conflict, then they should have came to a head. That's what I'm talking about. But other than that, though, I'm talking as far as character development is concerned, I think Tenzin and his kin were the best handled of the entire season. Them. I just think that it was poorly executed and that it could have been done better. That's all I'm saying. And finally, this is going to bring me to Korra and Unalaq. Alright, I'm going to try to wrap this up as quickly as I can. Korra and Unalaq. On the one hand, we have a protagonist who learned absolutely nothing from the events of season 1. Because they never showed. Korra was as immature, as selfish, as childish, as rash, as blunt, as... She was a fucking mess the entire season. She took absolutely nothing from her experiences with Amon in season 1. Learned nothing from her experiences with Tenzin in season 1. Learned nothing about trusting people and not trusting people and who you should take advice from and who you shouldn't and what you should do and what you shouldn't from her involvement with Tarlok in season 1. She learned absolutely nothing. So what we ended up getting was a lot of shit that shouldn't ever happen had Korra fucking paid attention to somebody in the first season. No, instead she acted like a fucking idiot and then completely ended the cycle of the Avatar. Now, I don't know if this was intentional for the writers, but what does that say about your character who is supposed to be the Avatar, who is the title character, who is supposed to be the main character, the leader of the team, the main focus of your series? How flawed and how... And I don't mean flawed in a good way. How flawed and how imperfect and how detrimental of a character is she that she would single-handedly bring about the entire end of the Avatar cycle through her own actions? Think about that for a minute while I have a sip of water. Let that marinate. And then, to add insult to injury, they go ahead and they end season 2 just like they did with season 1 with the bullshit Deus Ex Machina, where for some reason Korra's inner spirit is just so fucking more powerful than the spirit of good and righteousness and justice and balance, right? Her personal spirit is just so much more powerful that she could go toe to toe with Unalaq being fused with Baitu and defeat them and re-usher in the Avatar cycle. I'm sorry, what part of that makes fucking sense? None. Whatsoever. That makes no fucking sense at all. And then Unalaq. And look, and don't get me wrong. Here's my problem with Unalaq. Once again, Unalaq was written as a weak villain. And this is what I mean. The whole take over the world thing, I don't even think I need to get into detail with that. We know how contrived that is. But here's one thing I did like about Unalaq. The idea of the dark avatar, which I would much rather prefer anti-avatar. That's what I was referring to when I caught up to the episodes, anti-avatar. I thought that made more sense. But once again, a perfectly good character motivation reduced to shit. It never made sense to me. First off, I don't understand why they insist on killing off their villains. Because they killed off Amon in season 1 and they killed off Unalaq in season 2. I don't know why they keep killing these guys off. I think that's a waste of characters. But seeing as how you're introducing bullshit characters to begin with. But here's the thing. Unalaq's whole motivation about using the convergence, his whole plan to use the convergence so that he could fuse with Baitu and become the Dark Avatar. That I thought was fucking brilliant, actually. I really liked that fucking concept, and I really liked that. This is where it fell flat, though. The means to the end is him taking over the world. Once again, trife. But also the fact that they completely ended that idea with this season. And I don't think they should have done that. And actually, I think it would have been much more interesting if they would have ended the season with that fusion. And they would have brought in the idea, introduced a new character known as the anti-avatar, where on the one hand, you have the avatar who is supposed to maintain balance and peace in the world and all that jazz, and now you've introduced a new character whose sole purpose is the destruction and the chaos and to fight the avatar. And not only that, but you would introduce a character who could now be on equal footing with the avatar, because as good as Ozai as good as Ozai was, as good as Amon was, they could not go toe-to-toe with the Avatar in a straight-up fist-for-fist fucking fight. They couldn't do it. They didn't have the manpower. They didn't have the elements. They didn't have the Avatar state. But if you introduce the anti-Avatar, all of a sudden you make that possible. You introduce a character who can use all the elements, who can use an Avatar state, and whose sole purpose is the opposition of said Avatar. That, my friends, should have been the end of this season, so that now we have a main motherfucking antagonist, a Joker, if you will, a Lex Luthor, if you will, a Magneto, if you will, an arch nemesis that the Avatar can finally have, instead of having to deal with the ruler of this nation or the rebel in this nation. Now there is a force that can combat the Avatar at all times, an arch nemesis. There's so much shit they could have done with that, and they chalked it all aside. That was the most disappointing thing about this season. So, with no other ado, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to wrap up this review, and I'm going to give you all my final thoughts on the season. Season 2, just like Season 1, introduced a lot of ideas, a lot of good ideas, but fell into cliche, trite, and fucking deus ex machina, poor execution of said ideas, and once again, renders, in my opinion, an overall superfluous fucking season. Overall. Do I think it's better than Season 1? Yes. And for one reason, and one reason only, and that is the beginnings, parts 1 and 2. Those 2-part episodes, that was Avatar The Last Airbender caliber shit. Those 2 episodes, I thought did not belong in this series, in all honesty. They didn't. That was a fucking masterpiece that came out of nowhere. And yeah, I heard a lot of people liked it, and I heard it was critically acclaimed, and you know, got a lot of praise, and rightfully so, because that was great. Because those 2 episodes just so happened to be in this season, I can go ahead and I can give this season a notch up over Season 1. But that's not saying much, because as far as I'm concerned, this series as a whole still pales in comparison to its predecessor. That has not changed. Now, I think they said they already announced Season 3, I think it's going to premiere later this year. So I'll go ahead and I'll give that a shot too. I tell you this though, I do not fucking expect, I have very low expectations for it. Very, very low. And see, and I was I was holding out for Season 2, because now that we know that, we get into Season 2, Season 3, Season 4, I wanted to know if the creators could do it again, now that they know they're gonna have the time to really flesh out some good shit. And I gotta tell you, I'm not hopeful, not at all. So anyway, so that's going to conclude my Legend of Korra Season 2 review. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week, and in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this season, and let me know some of your expectations for Season 3. Now, this would be the time in the video when normally I would go ahead and announce what's coming down the wire later this week, but seeing as how this is going to be uploaded on Sunday, which technically is the start of the week, but for me, with my upload schedule, it's usually the end of the week. I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret, major announcement that I already hinted to in my Viking Season 2 Episode 1 review. Major announcement. In the next couple of weeks, I am going to be uploading videos around the clock. Yes, for the next couple of weeks, you will be getting a video a day, an upload a day. You will see the return of, well, first off, as far as TV shows are concerned, Arrow reviews are coming back on Wednesday. Viking Season 2 reviews on Thursday nights, and then Black Sails will be continuing on Saturday. As far as original content, Discussion of the Week is coming back. Top 5 is coming back. Advice Corner is coming back. And yeah, that's 6 videos there. I still haven't decided on the 7th. Not sure what that's going to be, but keep an eye out, because we're rolling on this. we're rolling. So with that being said, this is Larry